less fine, loosey-goosey, but still hanging tough. I am the new kid on the block, yeah!
Randy Savage occupies a rare level of intensity in WWE history. His career rose on the strength of moments that never faded and achievements that defined entire eras. The Intercontinental Championship became a proving ground that he mastered with precision. The WWF Championship placed him at the center of a national boom. A run with the WCW title confirmed his ability to succeed in any environment. WrestleMania turned into a stage where his presence felt essential. His induction into the Hall of Fame sealed a legacy that left no room for doubt. What makes his story compelling is the dual nature of his journey. On camera, he created art with motion, voice, and timing that felt larger than the arena around him. Behind the curtain, he lived with a fire that refused to cool. Pride guided his decisions. Loyalty shaped his reactions. Respect acted as the line no one was allowed to cross. Once someone violated that line, the memory stayed with him. He did not let it dissolve with time or victory. It stayed alive and sharpened the edge of every encounter that followed. Many wrestlers talk about rivalries as stories. Savage experienced them as personal tests. Certain actions cut deeper than the usual tension of competition. Certain words stayed with him long after the crowds left the building. These moments carved out a private list. A list that held 5 names tied to some of the most powerful conflicts of his career. Each name represents a chapter of pressure, ambition, and emotional collision that shaped the man more than any championship ever could. Understanding why these rivalries mattered requires a closer look at the forces that drove him. Those forces formed the foundation of every decision he made and every grudge he kept. Before we explore that list, we need to understand the mind that never forgot a single slight. Randy Savage did not arrive in wrestling as a guaranteed star. His first dream belonged to baseball, and he chased it through long bus rides, minor league fields, and the uncertainty that comes with a career built on hope. When that path closed, the ring became his new arena. Wrestling offered a place where his drive could breathe and his ambition could take shape. What began as a second chance transformed into the foundation of a legendary career. His rise was fueled by discipline and a relentless sense of purpose. The Macho Man persona grew from that intensity. Every promo, every match, and every feud carried his unmistakable stamp. Crowds responded because they sensed authenticity. Nothing about him felt half-hearted. Even the most theatrical moments carried a truth that made him stand out in an era full of powerful personalities. His private code shaped his reputation just as strongly as his performances. Respect mattered. Loyalty mattered. Personal boundaries mattered even more. When someone challenged any of those, the conflict became real to him. Certain wrestlers stepped over lines he considered unforgivable, and those moments shaped the rivalries that defined his career. Now the focus turns to the 5 names he never released from memory. Number 5. Diamond Dallas Page. Diamond Dallas Page entered Savage's career at a moment when WCW was boiling with competition. Veteran names were fighting to stay relevant while younger stars pushed for their place. DDP did not come from a traditional path. He started late, worked as a manager, transformed himself into a wrestler, and built momentum through persistence rather than pedigree. That unconventional rise irritated Savage. He believed the locker room should be earned through sweat, not personality or networking. When DDP began gaining attention, tension started to form long before their rivalry ever reached television. Their conflict exploded in 1997. WCW needed a feud that felt authentic, and Savage delivered exactly that. The moment he targeted DDP, the audience sensed something deeper than a storyline. Savage treated the rivalry like a test. He pushed DDP mentally and physically because he wanted to see if the newcomer could survive pressure at the highest level. Matches between them carried an edge that fans could feel even from the upper seats. Every exchange looked charged. Every confrontation felt like another step toward proving who belonged in the same ring as a veteran with Savage's history. Backstage friction only intensified the situation. DDP approached every match with respect and preparation, but Savage questioned his intentions. He wondered if Page was using the spotlight too aggressively. He disliked the attention Page received and the rapid rise that accompanied it. The feeling grew into a personal challenge. For Savage, wrestling was built on hierarchy. Anyone who bypassed that path unsettled him. DDP became the symbol of that frustration. Their feud, however, produced some of the most memorable moments in WCW during that era. Each match told a story of pride and competitive hunger. When Savage attacked DDP's personal life on television, the reaction from fans exploded. The rivalry suddenly felt more than professional. It felt like a collision between 2 men who wanted the same space in the industry, but through completely different roads. Something important happened as their battles continued. Savage began to recognize Page's commitment. Opponents who folded under pressure earned his disdain. Opponents who pushed back earned something different. DDP kept returning with resilience that impressed even the harshest critics. The more they clashed, the more Savage realized Page took the sport as seriously as he did. That recognition softened the resentment but never erased the scars of their early tension. Their rivalry ended with something rare in Savage's world: mutual respect. The hostility shaped the beginning, but the outcome reflected growth from both men. Page often credited Savage for elevating him. Savage rarely gave compliments publicly, yet it became clear he saw Page as someone who rose on merit rather than luck. DDP remains on this list not because their feud stayed toxic, but because it began with real friction and transformed into something meaningful. Savage never forgot how it started. He also never forgot how it changed. Number 4, Ultimate Warrior. Ultimate Warrior represented a challenge unlike anything Randy Savage had encountered. Warrior rose quickly on intensity, spectacle, and a surge of fan support that felt unstoppable. His momentum disrupted the landscape of WWE, and that sudden rise irritated Savage from the beginning. He believed superstardom should be built through consistency and respect for the locker room. Warrior moved at a pace that bypassed quiet dues and pushed straight into the spotlight. That conflict of philosophy stayed with Savage for years. The tension became impossible to ignore during their build toward WrestleMania 7. Savage understood the magnitude of that match. He approached every major event as a responsibility. Warrior approached it as a showcase. Their views collided. Savage wanted structure, timing, and detail. Warrior relied on raw energy and instinct. The friction created long meetings, heated discussions, and disagreements about how the match should unfold. Savage feared Warrior's unpredictable style would disrupt the flow. Warrior believed Savage tried to control too much. Their partnership felt like an ongoing negotiation with neither side fully satisfied. When the bell rang, their differences reached an explosive peak. Savage carried the weight of the story, adding emotional layers that elevated Warrior higher than ever. Warrior delivered an unforgettable performance, but Savage's contributions shaped the match into a classic. Fans remember the emotion, yet few understand how much tension lived behind every moment. Savage expected appreciation after the match. He expected Warrior to acknowledge the professionalism required to create a moment that memorable. Warrior did not respond in the way Savage hoped. That silence deepened a wound that already existed. Another source of resentment came from their backstage interactions. Warrior's approach to the business often felt solitary. He trained alone, prepared alone, and kept distance from anyone who questioned him. Savage valued connection with the roster. He wanted collaboration. Warrior's disregard for that culture created a gap that never closed. Every encounter between them added another layer of unspoken frustration. Their relationship grew even more strained in later years. Warrior returned to WWE with demands that unsettled veterans. Savage viewed those demands as disrespectful to the foundation the older talents had built. Warrior's charisma earned him opportunities, yet his behavior cost him trust. Savage believed trust was the backbone of wrestling. When that trust broke, conflict followed. Despite all this, Savage still acknowledged Warrior's power in the ring. He recognized the draw, the influence, and the intensity Warrior brought to major events. Respect for that ability existed, but resentment overshadowed it. The mix of admiration and frustration created one of the most complicated rivalries Savage ever experienced. Ultimate Warrior stands at number 4 because their tension shaped multiple phases of their careers. Their partnership produced iconic moments, yet their personal conflict remained unresolved. Savage never forgot how difficult it was to work with someone who challenged every part of his process. He accepted Warrior's talent, but never accepted Warrior's ways. Number 3, Ric Flair. Ric Flair entered Randy Savage's world with the confidence of a man who believed he owned the spotlight wherever he walked. Flair carried championships, reputation, and a swagger that made him a natural rival for anyone near the top. Savage respected the craft, but he also guarded his personal life with extreme intensity. When Flair blended their real history with storyline tension, a deeper conflict ignited that Savage never fully released. Their feud began with a moment Savage found impossible to ignore. Flair introduced a narrative involving Miss Elizabeth, claiming he had been in her life before Savage. Pictures appeared, promos pushed the boundary of what was acceptable. Savage felt those claims attacked not just his marriage, but his identity. Wrestling blurred lines often, but this storyline dug into a place he considered sacred. Fans saw drama. Savage felt intrusion. Every interview from Flair added another spark to the fire already burning inside him. WrestleMania 8 became the battlefield where those emotions collided. Savage entered the match with a focus sharpened by months of personal tension. Flair responded with trademark arrogance and confidence. The fight reflected more than professional rivalry. It carried the weight of two men fighting for pride as much as victory. Fans saw a classic. Savage saw a chance to reclaim control over a situation that had stretched far beyond entertainment. Backstage interaction between them never softened the tension. Flair approached the business with charm and showmanship. Savage approached it with structure and boundaries. Flair enjoyed pushing buttons. Savage hated when those buttons involved the people closest to him. That difference created an emotional gap that only grew wider over the years. Flair insisted the storyline was business. Savage believed Flair used business as an excuse to touch personal territory. Their time together in WCW reignited old friction. Flair remained confident. Savage remained guarded. Every promo exchange reminded Savage of a conflict that felt unfinished. He performed with intensity because the rivalry never felt completely professional. It carried a history that refused to fade. Ric Flair earns the third spot on this list because he crossed a line Savage never accepted. Their matches were spectacular and their chemistry undeniable, but the emotional cost behind those moments shaped a rivalry far deeper than belts or main events. Savage could respect Flair's talent. He could respect Flair's legacy. What he never respected was Flair's willingness to step into his personal world for the sake of attention. Number 2, Jake Roberts. Jake Roberts became one of the most volatile chapters in Randy Savage's career. Their tension never relied on theatrics or exaggeration. It lived in a moment so real that fans still talk about it decades later. Roberts crossed a line that Savage considered unforgivable, and the memory of that moment shaped the way Savage viewed him for the rest of his life. The incident unfolded during a televised segment that involved Roberts' trademark snake. Savage was tied in the ropes with no room to escape. Roberts positioned the Cobra inches from him, creating a scene that looked shocking enough for any audience. What happened next escalated the rivalry into something far beyond the script. The snake bit Savage, and the bite lasted longer than anyone expected. Savage had trusted the segment would follow a safe plan. Roberts pushed the moment further than that plan allowed. The pain was real. The fear was real. The violation of trust was even more real. That single act created a rift Savage never closed. He believed wrestling required cooperation. Even the most intense scenes depended on mutual respect. Roberts turned that moment into something personal, and Savage carried the sting of that betrayal long after the cameras cut away. Backstage conversations did nothing to calm the tension. Roberts insisted the moment added drama. Savage believed the moment endangered him. The disagreement became a wall between them that neither man attempted to break. Their matches reflected that hostility. Every encounter felt sharper. Every strike carried a layer of frustration that had nothing to do with wins or losses. Savage entered the ring with a mindset shaped by caution and resentment. Roberts entered with confidence built on psychological warfare. Their dynamic created segments fans still remember because the emotion behind them never needed embellishment. Roberts' ability to manipulate emotions made him a brilliant performer, but that same ability made him unpredictable to work with. Savage respected talent, but only when paired with responsibility. Roberts thrived on pushing boundaries. Savage guarded boundaries with everything he had. The clash of those principles turned their rivalry into a storm that followed them through every arena they shared. Jake Roberts stands at number 2 because he delivered a moment Savage never forgave. Trust once broken rarely returns. Savage lived with that truth in every confrontation they had. The bite may have healed on the surface, but the memory stayed alive inside him long after their careers moved in different directions. Number 1, Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan represents the most complicated and emotional rivalry Randy Savage ever carried. Their connection began as a partnership built on trust and national spotlight. The mega powers became a phenomenon that elevated both men into mainstream icons. Fans saw unity. Savage felt pressure. Every interview, every handshake, every moment of teamwork created a dynamic that looked strong from the outside but shook beneath the surface. The true fracture started with a subtle pattern that Savage noticed long before fans did. Hogan often took the lead in public moments meant to be shared. He embraced Miss Elizabeth too comfortably for Savage's liking. He spoke in ways that placed himself at the center of their alliance. Savage believed Hogan was slowly shifting attention while presenting it as friendship. That imbalance grew into resentment that simmered behind the curtain long before it appeared on television. WrestleMania 5 became the breaking point. Their match reflected more than competition. Savage entered the ring carrying months of frustration. Hogan entered with confidence built on his position as the company's top star. The story of jealousy and betrayal played out on screen, but the emotion behind it came from places neither man hid well. Savage felt overshadowed. Hogan felt entitled to leadership. Their clash created one of WWE's most memorable main events because the audience sensed a truth beneath the script. Once their partnership collapsed, the tension only intensified. Hogan's choices backstage often fueled more irritation. Decisions about booking interviews and public appearances strengthened the belief that Hogan operated with self-interest. Savage believed loyalty required fairness. Hogan believed success required control. Those opposing views created distance they never repaired. Their time in WCW reignited the rivalry. Old wounds returned. New disagreements formed. Savage challenged Hogan's authority. Hogan challenged Savage's reactions. Every segment involving them carried real weight because unresolved history never disappeared. Fans enjoyed the drama. Savage lived with the frustration. Hogan stands at the top of this list because no other wrestler affected Savage on so many levels. Their partnership created moments that defined an era, yet their conflict created scars that remained long after the cameras stopped. Savage respected Hogan's influence, but never forgot the imbalance that damaged their bond. The rivalry was not built on a single moment. It was built on years of tension that evolved from friendship to suspicion and finally to open hostility. Savage carried that history with clarity. Hogan stayed in his mind longer than anyone else because no other betrayal felt as personal. Randy Savage lived in a world where every rivalry carried weight. His journey through WWE and WCW proved that championships alone did not define him. The real force behind his legacy came from the conflicts that pushed him, challenged him, and shaped the competitor he became. Diamond Dallas Page earned his respect through resilience. Ultimate Warrior brought friction that never truly settled. Ric Flair crossed personal boundaries that changed their relationship forever. Jake Roberts created a moment of betrayal that Savage could never erase. Hulk Hogan left the deepest mark of all because their bond blended success, trust, and disappointment in a way no storyline could capture. These 5 names reveal the principles Savage valued most. Respect mattered, loyalty mattered, boundaries mattered even more. When any of those cracked, the result stayed with him for years. His grudges were not about anger, they were about standards. He demanded seriousness from the people who shared the ring with him, and he expected the same level of commitment he gave every time he stepped through the ropes. Looking back, these rivalries shaped the heart of his career. They fueled unforgettable matches and unforgettable emotion. Which of these 5 rivalries stands out most to you?